Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, good wherever you are, to Dr. Mizan Coaching. For those of you who have just stumbled upon my channel, I'm Dr. Nahim Mizan. I'm a family medicine trained physician who has been working full-time as a medical legal consulting physician. So highly encourage you to check out my first video, the introduction. But basically what I do is that I go around the world, and especially all over the US, but I help doctors, nurses, healthcare facilities such as hospitals, clinics, etc., improve their practices. And I also help patients basically gather information and help them establish merit for cases. And I also work with attorneys and everyone. Basically, my role is to provide objective medical reality to many different allegations. So this, I would say, is the most important video that will be on my channel. And I really don't mean that lightly. So if you are a doctor, a nurse, even an attorney, a medical malpractice or personal injury attorney, or if you are a patient or a family member of a patient that you believe was wrongfully harmed or neglected in any type of healthcare facility, you need to watch this video. I can't believe I'm saying this, but please like and subscribe and share this video and my channel with everyone you know. The whole reason why I'm doing this channel is simply because I occupy this super duper niche in medicine. I'm a doctor that works in the medical legal sector. I'm sure, a lot of people haven't even heard of the medical legal sector. And so my role here is really just to increase justice, help closure for people who have been hurt, and to educate everyone into what this world is, like what it entails and what are your rights as a patient, as a family member, etc. Okay, so I hope this video isn't too long, but I'm going to try to cram everything in here, and then we'll have subsequent videos and shorts sort of going into each specific topic. But please really take notes. Like, this is the most important video. And again, I work with hospitals and clinics all over the world, and especially in the US. And I basically go around giving lectures on these things. And, I've seen improvements in hospital protocols. Okay, awesome. So I basically divided this video into a few different sections. So, and you can just, hopefully it'll create the chapters here, but Chapter 1, why documentation is vital and what is documentation. 2, best tips for patients, and then best tips for family members of those patients, and then best tips for providers such as doctors, nurses, and then finally, and the most juicy of which, is best tips for resident doctors, so resident physicians and their attendings, really. Okay. So I'm going to try to keep this short, so let's dive in. All right, so what is documentation, like medical documentation? So medical documentation literally means writing down everything. That's really what it means. So for a doctor, for example, when I was in the clinical world, a patient comes in, we do a full admission note, an HPI. We get the subjective, we get the objective assessment and plan. We discuss with our colleagues, we discuss with consultants such as cardiology, infectious disease, endocrinology, what have you, and we document everything. We put in our order set, and then in our initial note, we write down justification. So why did we order, amoxicillin instead of cephalexin or whatever, right? Like we as doctors and nurses, it's kind of second nature to us, but I'm trying, the whole point of this channel is to explain all this stuff in a very simple way so that everyone understands. So there's a whole workflow that goes on behind the scenes, from triage to a patient in the emergency room, all the way to admission. And in the outpatient setting, your the medical assistants, so those of you who are MAs, how vital your job is. So, we doctors depend on the information given to us by the medical assistants upon triage and the initial assessment, the vitals, etc. All of these steps, guys, needs to be documented, all right? I cannot stress that enough. Every single thing that you do needs to be documented, and my hair is kind of crazy. So every single thing needs to be documented by everyone somewhere, all right? So And that's important. And the reason why is because in the medical legal world, if something happens, right? Like, and I'm family med, so I always joke with my clients, like my whole job is prevention, right? Like screening and prevention. So it's kind of perfect that I entered the medical legal world. So, you know, so that's what documentation is. It's just writing down everything that's happened. And so first I'll go through tips for patients. So patients, meaning humans, meaning all of us, right? Like when we go to the hospital, when we go to our PCP, our doctor, or whomever, write down everything. So what I wrote here is timing, names, and the most important part of this is, you know the statute of limitations for your state. So, you know, different states have different SOLs or statutes of limitations. So for example, California, I believe, has a 1-year statute. Texas, Alabama, Arkansas, they all have different statutes. Some of them are 2 years from the date of incident. So date of incident is really when you make a claim, or sorry, when the event happens. So let's say that your allegation, so again, what I'm talking about here is a medical malpractice case or a lawsuit. That's what we're talking about. So if you do believe that, you know, you were wronged by a doctor or a nurse or an entire facility, then you really have to know your SOLs for your state. So if it's 1 year, you literally just have 1 year from the time of the date of injury or DOI or date of incident, date of injury to when you can file a claim with an attorney. And if it's beyond the SOL, it's gone. Like you can't do anything. But there are some special situations where the attorney can put in an appeal and, you know, and they can extend the SOL in some very specific situations. So the best tips for patients and even family members is before you or your loved one goes to the clinic, to the hospital, write stuff down. Like, you know, text them, say, hey, mom, dad, like, you know, which clinic are you going to again? What's the name of your provider? You know, like when did the nurse take your vitals? What were your vitals? And I know it sounds crazy, right? But it's like I've been on the other side where I've had to represent families and educate them on, like, you know, what they could have done. And in my head, I'm always like, gosh, like I wish they found me sooner. And, you know, that like I taught them these things before, but of course that's impossible, right? So write down timings, write down the names of institutions, providers, and also if you can, if there's someone in your family who is medically trained or savvy or what have you, write down diagnoses and treatments. So if someone has cellulitis of the left lower extremity and they were prescribed Augmentin or something, write that down, put in the dosage and just put it in a text note, something on your phone, just in case, you know? So, and I know this sounds like overkill, but trust me, if something bad happens, you're gonna wish, you know, a year ago that you had that text document. Okay, so that's really for patients and family members. The best tips for providers now, for my fellows, my peeps. And again, this is something that I learned just through being a medical legal consulting doctor. And, you know, I had two really, how can I say this? They were pretty strict, but they were, in retrospect, they were fantastic attendings while I was in residency, who basically taught me the phrase, if you don't document it, it means it never happened. So, you know, basically it's like if you do a physical exam, if you do a specific physical exam test or what have you, but you didn't document it, then people can argue that you never actually did it. So it sounds kind of scary, but you know, that's the world that we live in today. Like, people don't trust each other. So you just got to cover your, you know, I have a short on CYA, right? So cover your rhymes with grass, so cover your butt. And again, this kind of goes through everything. So if you are a provider, you know, document everything that you do with that patient, document communications that you have with other team members. So if you are an internal medicine doctor managing the floors, like being a hospitalist or what have you, and you spoke with a cardiologist or a neurosurgeon, and the neurosurgeon is refusing to do a certain intervention, write that down. Say that, you know, I spoke with the neurosurgeon on call. You don't have to write names. I mean, you could if you're brave enough, but, you know, like I would highly recommend just writing, you know, like spoke with the neurosurgeon or the cardiologist on call. The cardiologist stated that they do not wish to intervene at this time. That's it. Spoke with attending who agrees with this plan. Boom. So you just saved yourself, and you also provided context to the cardiologist or neurosurgeon or whatever, and you also stated that you spoke with your attending. So you marked all the checkboxes. So that's really what's important. So this prevents miscommunications. And if there are any delays in care, like let's say, especially for all you ED doctors, like I see this so often in my cases. Like whenever an ED doc comes to me and says, "Oh doc, like what did I do wrong in my notes?" It's like, you didn't write stuff down, man. Like it's like, as ED physicians, like your job is what? Like to see if a human is dying actively, right? So if they're dying actively, you admit them. If they're not and they're fine, you send them home or whatever. And you need to write all that down, and you need, if there's a delay, like if they can't find a bed for like 5 hours, you need to write down that, like, I saw the patient at this time. However, due to lack of beds in the ICU, or usually not the ICU, but due to lack of beds, patient here, update, patient still here, something like that. Okay. Again, all of this is to protect yourself. I know this sounds super like old school, but don't trust anyone. Just care about yourself, care about your career, care about your practice. That's the whole point of this channel. Let's protect our practices. And okay, so that's it. So justify delays, or rather document miscommunications. And also the other thing for all doctors really is to justify your orders and diagnoses. So, I've seen so many notes that have a diagnosis in the assessment and plan that doesn't really say anything. So, like, if you write essential hypertension as a diagnosis, put a little bit of context, like say that, this person was diagnosed in 2017, currently on lisinopril, blah, blah, Q date or whatever. And just, if you just put that, then everyone in the future will know, because it's not just your note, right? Like other doctors, other nurses, etc., are looking at it. And now we have all the medical documents are owned by the patients themselves. Okay. So everything we write as physicians is actually readable by the patient. So remember that. So your audience now is not just you. And that's a very old school way of thinking. And I grew up with a family of physicians, so I remember reading their notes, and I was, now as being trained in, it's 2024 right now, it's very different. So the things that your attendings are teaching you and everything, just, this isn't a jab at them, but it was a previous time back then. And us as like millennials, Gen Z doctors, like it's a lot. I don't want to scare you guys, but it is a lot more. We have to be a lot more cautious in like how we document and like what can happen to us, because now everything is interconnected, like everything's on EMR, everything is discoverable. Patients can just get their medical records anytime they want. So we do need to be more cautious than what we're being taught in medical school and residency. And if you wish to have me speak at your university or your hospital, my business email is in my profile. Feel free to reach out. That's literally my job. I go around the world teaching people. So feel free to reach out. I'd love to help you. And again, my whole goal is just to improve healthcare systems around the world, because I saw too many things fall through the cracks in my life, in my career as a clinical doctor. So, and patients are the ones who get hurt, right? So let's be honest here. And we doctors and healthcare providers, it's up to us. It's literally up to us to change this faulty system. And I'll have another video on what my personal opinions are on a faulty system and my solutions, which I share with everyone. But whether they follow it or not, whether I'm right or not, but it's the best that we can hope for, I guess, in this climate and with my education. So, and my training. All right. So finally, and this is, I think, the juiciest topic of them all, best documentation tips for residents and attending physicians. So I'm just going to destroy one myth about the healthcare world. So a ton of med students and residents, are you ready? And comment below if you know anything about this or if you believe this. So they believe that they're immune to lawsuits. So they believe that, they can't get sued. It's not my license. I have an attending physician. They co-sign all my notes. They're the one, blah, blah. Okay. I've worked on hundreds of medical malpractice and personal injury cases. Residents can get sued. I've had cases where scribes got sued. Can you believe that craziness? Like a scribe. So, and the reason why, and I know you guys are going to hate this, I actually gave a webinar at a nearby hospital, and someone commented that like, oh, this is all very doom and gloomy. And I was like, yeah, that's why, that's why I do this, because we need to be more, camaraderie. We need to help each other more in this field. So, okay, I'm just going to say it. People will throw you under the bus to save their career. That's the reality of this world. I have dozens of cases where that is literally what happened. So like a resident physician wrote something but forgot to write something else, and then the attending obviously is the one who gets the lawsuit, gets subpoenaed or what have you, gets presented papers by a disgruntled patient who went to a medical malpractice attorney, who went to the legal team of the hospital, who is now implicating the attending and saying, oh, why did you even supervise this resident physician? Did you check the orders that he or she put in? Why would you allow them to do this procedure or to put them on this medication? And so what happens in that situation many times, like, of course, like there are some attendings and residents who look out for each other. And that's my hope, right? Like my hope is that we all become friendlier as a society of doctors and nurses and residents, etc. But the system in place right now is a very for-profit system, and that's actually what I'm trying to fix. And hopefully you can help me. Hopefully if you want to become a medical legal consulting physician, again, email me. I'd love to discuss this career path. But anyway, so what ends up happening is that the attending throws the resident physician under the bus, and that's usually the case. It's never the other way around. So, because power dynamics, right? All of us who are aware of power dynamics know how it works. So, but usually, so that's why I tell all my resident physician friends and colleagues and clients. I only have a couple clients because we don't, back when I was residents don't make that much money, right? So. But basically protect yourself. Like I would always add a line saying, discuss the above plan with attending physician, Dr. So-and-so, who agrees with the plan, will provide edits as appropriate. And then as an attending, in order to protect yourself and your residents, you should write something similar. So you should write like, discuss this with resident team on call, agree with the assessment, and always make edits. And I know that's crazy, okay? Like I know I've been there, done that. You have like 300 things that you have to click okay, acknowledge on your Cerner or your Epic. I know. However, your career is worth more than just 100 clicks, right? So make sure you read your residents' notes. Make sure you make edits appropriately. The next day in morning rounds, like say, hey, look, by the way, excellent note, excellent management. The only thing I changed was this because, I looked it up, and, this antibiotic is, looking at the sensitivities and resistances, this has a better it's more efficacious than the one that you put on. I went ahead and changed it, blah, great. So always do that. And again, like interdepartmentally, write down, like if there are any weird events, like, if you spoke with a nurse or a nurse spoke with a doctor and there was some like, drama or whatever, just write a little event note, okay? Because then if it comes to bite you in the butt, you have an event note, right? And again, this is the most important video I would say on this channel. The rest of the videos aren't going to be as dramatic, I swear, but I felt like this was a very good opportunity to just kind of lay down the brickwork for the importance of documentation in the healthcare world. So please like and subscribe and all that good stuff, but share this video. And if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please comment below, and I promise we'll make videos on these topics, because the whole point of this is to help the healthcare system all over the world, and we need to fix these holes.